Enough of European queens, at least just for now. In this Once Upon a Woman video, I want to discuss with you the incredible rise of Hurrem Sultan. When you think of queen consorts, the images that come to your minds are pious and devoted and discreet wives who serve their husbands and who are usually absent from political life. That was not the case for Hurrem Sultan. Born in Ruthenia, which is nowadays Ukraine, in 1504 from an Orthodox Christian family, Hurrem Sultan had the most incredible fate that we can imagine in the 16th century. She died on the 15th April 1558, but her life deserves to be remembered. Before 1520, she was captured by Crimean Tartars in a slave raid, and she was sent to the Imperial Harrem in Istanbul. There she served as a slave and as a concubine to the Ottoman Emperor, the very well-known Suleiman the Magnificent. The story goes that it was actually Suleiman's mother, Valid Hafsa Sultan, who gifted Hurrem to him. And in doing that, she changed the course of history without knowing it. Hurrem, you see, was not like any other woman. She was actually quite different in everything. She was very interested in learning. She always asked questions. She wanted to learn with Suleiman, and he was really intrigued to have someone with such great curiosity. But not only that, he loved that Hurrem was someone cheerful and playful, and that is why he gifted her the name Hurrem. Because Hurrem has other names that she's known of, La Rosa or Roxelana. European diplomats called her this because it meant the Ruthenian woman or the Russian woman. Hurrem's biographer, Dr. Peirce, said that she was probably called Anastasia from the beginning of her life, and then she changed her name to Hurrem. We know her now definitely as Hurrem Sultan, and it is the most common name. Unlike European kings and emperors, Ottoman emperors did not have wives. They had concubines. And there was a very logical reason for this. In the Ottoman tradition, there was no royal family in itself. There was the emperor and his harem and his concubines. And as soon as a concubine gave the sultan a son, she had to remove herself from court and from the harem to focus on her son. So she had to focus on his education, she had to focus on his military education, and they were given lands but also men, military army, removed from the political life in Istanbul. Did that because there was no clear succession in the Ottoman tradition. So you could have a first son, but the first son didn't mean that he would be the next emperor. And for that, it was because it was believed that an emperor should be based on their strength and on their intelligence. So the best should win, and it could have been the third son or the fourth son. But to make sure that a woman, a mother, would not have her interests conflicted and divided, and it would be hard and a heartbreak for her to choose, it was decided that it should be one woman, one mother, and one son. And this is why the story of Hurrem is so remarkable. Because of a love story with Suleiman, they broke the tradition, the Ottoman tradition. They broke, the customs. They changed the course of history. Hurrem and Suleiman had 5 sons and 1 daughter. The first one was Mehmet, but the one who was going to become the next emperor was Selim II, which explains to you again the complications when there are so many brothers and how difficult it must have been in the end for Hurrem to decide which one she needed to support. It obviously created in many ways kind of a problematic here where she would have to choose to have a favorite son. But I would like to also explain that Mehmet, who probably would have been the favorite because he was the firstborn, and what actually died before Suleiman, so he removed himself from the competition, if you want. However, because of the tradition, Suleiman already had a concubine who had given him a son. Her name was Mahidevran, and her son was Mustafa. They had been removed from the court, and it's where there was the rise of Hurrem. But obviously, because she had been the only woman for such a long time to have given him a son, created a rivalry between Hurrem and Mahidevran. And that rivalry led to the bad reputation of Hurrem, who was seen as being a cruel, ruthless politician in her own right. What is incredible with Hurrem's life is the fact that she convinced one of the most powerful men of all times to choose her, to break with the Ottoman traditions, and to elevate her as his wife, his sultan, another empress, right? From slave, she became an empress. And that is completely unheard of. What's also remarkable is that you realize when you look at their love letters how strong their bond was. And you realize that it was not just about a very strong physical attraction between the two of them. It was about what they represented for each other. I truly believe that Suleiman really loved Hurrem's curiosity, really loved her cheerful temperament. She made him laugh, and that is why he kept her above anyone else. When you look at their love letters, it is very clear that they truly adored one another. His military campaigns, Hurrem was left behind. The letters, you really realize how much he suffered from being apart from her true love. Allah knows that I have been crying night and day, waiting for you to come back home. Well, I was crying without knowing what to do. The one and only Allah allowed me to receive good news from you. Once I heard the news, Allah knows I came to life once more, since I had died while waiting for you. It's a true devotion, from Hurrem to Suleiman, but it is completely reciprocal. Suleiman wrote, "Throne of my lonely niche, my wealth, my love, my moonlight, my most sincere friend, my confidant, my very existence, my sultan, my one and only love, the most beautiful among the beautiful." He called her my sultan. He saw her as a type of equal. And this is why so many detractors of Hurrem attacked her. They really believed that somehow she had bewitched Suleiman because he was completely devoted to her and to their family. Of course, it also kind of drawn some nice parallels with what happened in many ways between Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. But here we have a completely different love story because Suleiman never abandoned Hurrem, and I really believe that their bond must have been stronger. We don't really know when the marriage, the union between Suleiman and Hurrem happened. It must have been between the birth of their first son Mehmed up to probably the death of Suleiman's mother, Valid Hafsa Sultan. Because before, there was no title that would elevate a woman, above the mother of a sultan. You would get your power in the Ottoman Empire by being the mother of a sultan. You're the valid sultan. And the word sultan meant that you were part of the dynasty. So it was a huge privilege, a huge honor to have the title sultan. In 1536, Hafsa Sultan died and Hurrem was made Haseki Sultan. And it was basically saying the wife of the sultan. And here it meant that she was given so much influence and power with just this name. She was now part of Suleiman's dynasty. She was basically, more or less, his equal. So sure, she didn't have a political title. She was not a chief advisor. She was not a pasha. But yet her influence and her political power was beyond incredible. And obviously it meant that she had enemies. Her first rival and enemy was obviously Mahidevran, the first who had given Suleiman a son, and Mustafa, her son, who was, older and stronger and also sometimes even more popular than Hurrem's sons. And that's because obviously Hurrem, she broke with traditions, and obviously it created some, unpopular opinions among the people. The second biggest enemy of Hurrem was Ibrahim Pasha, who was the Grand Vizier of Suleiman and who was supporting Mahidevran and Mustafa. Here we're going to have a power struggle between Suleiman and Hurrem, the united couple, and these very powerful and influential, political actors in Suleiman's reign. Mustafa was gaining in popularity. He had his own army. He had been sent to war, but he had won in some campaigns, so he was very popular. And Suleiman was starting to fear that Mustafa would create a rebellion, would create a massive rebellion against his reign, but also against his sons with Hurrem. So tragically, he was going to make the decision to end the life of his eldest son, Mustafa. Hurrem Pasha was going to know the same fate, because he was also rising in popularity and he was also getting maybe too arrogant. And it really reminds me, that dynamic reminds me of what happened between Henry VIII and his political advisors, Wolsey and Cromwell. You give power to a Grand Vizier or, a chief advisor or sort of a prime minister, obviously it creates kind of an imbalance in power, and there's always a risk for the king or for the emperor that they could be overthrown. And during the war with the Persian Safavid, Ibrahim Pasha was trying to gain more power and more influence. And so for this, he was also executed for treason. With the death of enemies, it is not really surprising that Hurrem's detractors were blaming her for what happened. There is no hard evidence that Hurrem had anything to do with the death of Mustafa or the death of Ibrahim Pasha. Yet it is also true that it is still a possibility that she really influenced Suleiman or pushed him to the edge on explaining the danger their sons were into. So I think that here we have we can't really dismiss the fact that Hurrem was a ruthless politician, and she was a type of woman who would do anything to protect her family and to protect her sons. And in many ways it is what was expected from mothers of future sultans. So here it's not that surprising that she would behave that way. And in many ways she's a true lioness. But Hurrem is also someone with a very good and big heart. So she converted to Islam when she was in the Imperial Harrem. And though some people might say, oh, she might have been forced to convert, yes. But then I really believe that she was really genuine in her religion and the way she approached Islam. She ordered the creation of a few mosques, showing that she was probably true to her faith. But more than that, she also really believed in helping the people and helping her people. 1552, in Jerusalem, she established the Aseki Sultan Emirate, which was basically a public soup kitchen to feed the poor, which was said to have fed at least 500 people twice a day. So here we have a sultan who truly cared and wanted to really, provide for her people. And I think that is quite remarkable that we don't really talk about this type of charity works, because in many ways it kind of removed this idea that she was just this cruel person who got rid of her enemies, and actually she was someone who was playing the political game, but she was someone who also had a very big heart and a very good heart, and who was trying to provide for her people. I hope you really enjoyed this video on the incredible rise of Hurrem Sultan. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any comments or any questions, please leave them down below. I will reply to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next Once Upon a Woman video. Bye!